Before you listen to the Tech Talk Daily podcast, I have to ask, are the high levels of uncertainty you're experiencing keeping you from making bold moves? Are you able to clearly see and act on the game-changing opportunities the pandemic has created? I'm Daniel Burris, serial entrepreneur, global technology futurist, and disruptive innovation expert, and right now, you have a choice to make. You can react to problems and disruptions after they happen, or you can learn to accurately anticipate disruptions before they disrupt and identify and pre-solve problems before they happen, giving you the ability to turn disruptive change into your biggest advantage. If you want to take control of your future and make a significant impact now and in the years ahead, join thousands of leaders from around the world by becoming a member of my Anticipatory Leader System, where you'll get the latest insights, processes, tools, and virtual coaching that will give you the certainty and confidence you need to actively shape a better future for you and your organization. Go to techblogwriter.co.uk and click on Daniel Burris.
Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. How you all doing, gang? We're deep into the holiday season now, New Year just round the corner, and we are living in a time where enterprises are relying heavily on distributed data centres. But managing a distributed data centre, of course, comes with its own management and agility challenges. To avoid major disruptions and remain reliable, what interests me is how networks need to be able to self-diagnose and make pivots as and when required. And of course, the problem with that is in order to maintain it. And of course, the problem with that is in order to maintain that agility, companies using distributed data centers can't pivot unless they have the right automation approach. But by enabling a best-of-breed software, updating processes to reduce human error, and maintaining a strong network foundations, companies can do just that. So what's the delay? I hear you shouting at your podcast feed. Well, thankfully, my new friend Zach, who is a tech evangelist at Apstra, is going to join me on the podcast today to discuss how organisations and channel partners can quickly identify what vendors are delivering the best plug-and-play software to solve all those challenges, as well as how it will help organisations survive the next crisis. Can't believe we're talking about the next crisis already. We've still got one to get out of the way. So hopefully he's going to talk about all that and also share how this data center agility could allow organizations to remain more competitive in their industry by simply allowing network engineers to focus on strategy rather than firefighting. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to Florida, where Zach, tech evangelist at Apstra, is waiting to speak with us now. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yes, thanks for having me as your guest on the show. My name is Zach Zilakakis, and I'm a technical evangelist, and I lead the marketing team here at Apstra. I've also been an analyst at Gartner in the past, focused on data center and cloud networking. So what all this really means is that I'm focused on the messaging and getting that messaging into the marketplace to eliminate any confusion on the value that we're delivering in the market and why we're so unique and differentiated. Apstra as a company is focused on continuous automation and validation from day 0 through day 2, and we can get into that a little bit more. But again, thank you for having me on the show.
It's a pleasure. And it's an incredibly cool job title there, tech evangelist. Do you ever get stopped at airport security? Because I had one a few years ago. I think it was San Francisco airport. And I was trying to explain that I was a tech ghostwriter. And that seemed to take a lot longer than I expected. And even got took to a little room in the corner and had to explain. And ultimately it ended with, you make other people sound good. And we agreed, and I entered San Francisco. But do you have to explain yourself with that cool job title?
Actually, I do, especially to family members. They don't. What is that? What do you mean? You're an evangelist? Well, yes and no. I evangelize the technology so people aren't confused, and yet they're confused. So then I wonder, am I doing my job right or not? They're struggling to understand exactly what I do. So that's funny, and that's an interesting story on your side. I will say though, I in the past have married coworkers. What I mean by that is I'm an actual ordained minister, believe it or not. It's a little side story. So when you say evangelist, I can take that either way.
Wow.
At Gartner, one of my coworkers, she was she had gotten married, and she'd asked me if I could officiate the wedding, and I did. So I guess that word has several meanings for me.
That's incredibly cool. So are you the go-to guy for any tech guys out there or girls that are thinking you're getting married? Do they call you when?
No, I don't. I've only officiated 2 weddings. My sister-in-law, my wife's sister, and then the coworker from when I was at Gartner. But that's it. I prefer to stick to my day job. I'm much better at that.
Great story. And one of the reasons I invited you on here, though, is that at the moment, enterprises are relying heavily on distributed data centers. It's a huge topic at the moment, but managing a distributed data center, of course, comes with its own management and agility challenges, especially when you're looking at avoiding disruptions and remaining reliable. Networks need to be self-diagnosed and make pivots when required. So can you set the scene and expand on the scale of the challenges that are facing businesses right now?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, it's resources. And by resources, also intelligence at the edge, and how are we going to act on all this data? So, the resource challenge is the biggest one. And a lot of that involves analytics, which is the core component of that. So, how can we solve these challenges with the resources that we have, and also do that quickly, while adding intelligence at the edge? I think that's a big thing. And look, companies are looking to implement initiatives, machine learning, AI at all aspects of their business, but they don't have the foundation. Right? They need to focus on that foundation to add the speed, agility, and flexibility in what's coming ahead. So they need to think about that now, because people are going to come with really difficult implementation questions, and you might not be ready for them. So, this intelligence at the edge, for me here at Apstra, it comes down to that foundation. Is your foundation in place? So when the organization comes to you wanting to implement these machine learning or AI initiatives, that you're going to be able to support them with the foundation that they can sit on top of. And we're seeing some of this, especially with distributed machine learning. We look at what Google's really leading with. I mean, we're seeing this sense of distributed machine learning, with TensorFlow sitting at the organization's edge, feeding into, let's say, GCP. But again, that foundation has to be there. It has to be reliable, and it has to be meeting the business needs. And that's really where we focus on here at Apstra. It's intent-based networking. So taking what the business wants to get out of the network and aligning that from a technology, translating that into the right technology. So I think that's impacting almost every organization today.
And for people listening that are outside of technology, maybe they're in the C-suite or decision makers, can you tell me a little bit more about the ins and outs of managing a distributed data center with automation? Because again, I think it's a topic that people want to know more about, but often feel intimidated by the subject.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. What we see a lot of, and I'm going to start by just saying, what we see is a lot of organizations are building, I like to say, quick and dirty foundations networks to never go back to fix issues. Let's take, for example, the outage we've seen last week with Amazon. These are companies that went down because there wasn't resilience. Yeah. I mean, this is Amazon, right? This is not architected correctly. And we see this even, on-prem with organizations where they build things because they have to get something up, quickly, in a hurry, and they never go back and fix these issues. So how can we solve that challenge? What do we need to do differently? Back in August, we went to market with day zero operations. And I know that, might be counterintuitive. People think of day 2 for operations, but we have to think about operating at day 0. And that's really what we mean by that. And that means not just automating, day 0 and day 1. there's a lot of focus on automation, but that focus is day zero, or I should say day one, and that's not constant over time. So how can we take this automation at day zero, continue it to through day two, as well as validate that? That's the biggest piece too, is this validation. Validation is really the it's the insurance. It's creating that reliability. So validating what I'm putting in at day zero is going to continue through day two, and so we can eliminate some of these I like to say just quick and dirty, foundations that are laid down, networks that are implemented. So that is where we need to start and where we need to look at. And again, a lot of organizations, or not organizations, a lot of solutions stop at day one and they don't validate. You can automate something 100 times, but it could be a mistake. So do you want to really automate that 100 or 1,000 times? Or do you want to validate that and make sure that it's, meeting the needs?
And so how can organizations and channel partners too better identify what vendors are delivering out there, and what are the best plug and play software that's available to solve data center challenges like that?
The question really is, do you go for, best of breed?
Yeah.
Where you have to figure out how you're going to integrate that. If you do it yourself, there's a big challenge there. That word is out there a lot. Or do you take one perhaps that has the best integration, across the board? So, I think there's a lot of benefit to best of breed, especially in today's marketplace. But when you do that, you have to be able to make sure that that is all integrated correctly. But you also, the other thing too, that is very, very crucial right now, probably now more than ever, is you have to be able to switch out vendors quite easily, because they could be irrelevant quickly. In today's marketplace, we understand that things are moving fast. The business cycles are compressing very, very, very quickly, especially during the pandemic that we're all facing right now. And so, I think best of breed, you have to look for your best of breed, but you also have to look at how that is going to be integrated. And, something that we do here at Apstra is we pride ourselves on abstracting that upper level, management plane, if you will. Above the network operating system, above all of that, just abstracting a lot of that complexity and allowing these institutions, these organizations, to easily deploy their vendor of choice. So I'll give you an example. Today, it could be perhaps the largest networking vendor, out there today. It could be in your environment. But what if the business came to you and said, hey, we want to drop in an AI ML solution and it's prepackaged and we're going to put it in the data center? How are you going to absorb that? How are you going to operationalize that? You have to have the flexibility to switch out vendors very easily, especially with a consistent operational model, and tie together that best of breed. So I think what they need to look for, in summary, is you look for best of breed, but you also have to look at the ease of integrating that best of breed and have the flexibility to switch out vendors, because they could be irrelevant very quickly in this day and time.
So can you also expand on how data center agility can actually allow organizations to also remain more competitive in their industry by essentially allowing network engineers to focus on strategy rather than firefighting? Because there does seem to be a big desire now to go from that reactive and firefighting approach to something much more proactive.
I want to start by just mentioning something that we've had in the industry for 20 plus years that hasn't been successful, and that's these monitoring tools. Great ways to respond to outages and events, but they're all biased towards outages and problems. These monitoring systems are just monitoring thresholds. They're improper visibility. There's just not a lot of usefulness there. So how do we get to that predictive state? How do we get to, like you said, ensuring that these engineers can focus on, business strategies as opposed to firefighting? And I think that starts at day zero. It goes back to day zero operations, automating and validating from day zero through day two. And there's a lot of complexity, and it's not as easy as just saying that. A solution, for example, like Apstra, where we have a single source of truth of the network, and we're able to ensure continuously through our advanced analytics that what you intend for the network to do, that is how it's functioning. So automating and then continuous automation and validation from day zero through day two to give you some of that flexibility. So you can have predictive analysis. Hey, before I deploy this this new solution to my data center, what is the impact going to be on my network? Is there going to be a problem? Maybe the network responds and says, if you do this, you could see a spike in traffic and create a hotspot in your environment, or this is going to break the intent that you had for this infrastructure originally. So, to create that, it's got to have to be a new way of thinking. Again, I go back to, thinking about operations at day zero and continuing that through day two with the continuous validation and automation.
And a question I feel I've got to ask, because there's so many people out there now selling a solution and saying all those right buzzwords. So for all those people that are tired of people queuing up in their reception area and selling them the next big thing, are there any myths in the industry that you would like to lay to rest today? Because I suspect there's going to be a few of them.
Yes, I think so, without a doubt. Organizations have to be careful with these new and shiny AI tools. AI is the buzzword that gets executives excited, but not all AI tools work, or at least work for the organizations with how they want to utilize them with their existing technology. So, I think we're just scratching the surface, the AI surface, but we're not even at general intelligence. So today we're doing narrow intelligence, which is stage one. Stage two is general intelligence, which I think Google, in my opinion, is the only one that's there right now. And then, stage three is AI superintelligence, which is more machine consciousness. So in my opinion, I think organizations have to be careful with a lot of these, these AI promises and tools, because what are they really solving? And, in the meantime, what they need to focus on is that, again, I go back to what I said earlier, that their foundation is in place, that it's reliable, that it is there to support when these initiatives come to fruition. And in the meantime, evaluate these buzzwords before you dive in and see if they're really meeting, what you need them to meet. And I would say one other thing too is, I don't know that this is as much a myth, but the second thing I would say is that cloud is the only option for simplicity and agility. I would challenge that. Cloud is or was a symptom of IT not doing it right. So cloud is really about abstracting that complexity that I'd mentioned earlier. That is really important, and something that Apstra is that's table stakes for us. But it's really about an API-driven infrastructure. So how can I take that on premises? How can I bring that on premises to realize some of those operational benefits? We're delivering that today, but so that myth that that's just available in the cloud, it is a myth. I mean, it's you can get that on-prem, and you need to approach your on-prem environment as though that in that manner, operational simplicity. So I think those are two big ones.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And that's before we even begin on the things that say that AI, but are certainly not AI too.
Exactly. So when you think about it, even operationally, I like to use the example of, there are some benefits and not. I think, from our perspective, when you're leveraging analytics, it's when you introduce humans, you introduce an aspect of, for example, if I say, Siri, what is Neil's relationship with me? Siri's not going to be able to answer that. It doesn't understand that. But as humans, you and I, we can relate, and we can, think through that, have some cognitive thoughts through that. And it's a little bit of a different answer. I think AI has a little ways to go on certain areas. And I think sometimes you need to leverage other avenues, I guess, to solve your needs. I don't know if that made sense, Neil, but
no, absolutely, it really does. I think it's something that will resonate with a lot of people listening too, and a lot of people, especially in the tech industry, will know of Apstra as the intent-based networking pioneers. But can you tell me a little bit more about the problems that you solve for businesses, and what do you think it is that makes you a little bit different from other solutions out there?
Abstras Architecture, what we're delivering, this continuous automated and validated approach to the data center that, in my opinion, is necessary for successful deployments and operational consistency. This vision is realized by intent-based networking, which we pioneered. It's an approach that aligns the technology to the user's intentions for its network. And this arises from the business expectations. So it goes back to what I was saying earlier. And then, also these meaningful analytics. And I say meaningful because not all analytics are meaningful, but grabbing those meaningful analytics based on that to help pinpoint not just anomalies, but also where, potential root cause might make, an issue, I create an issue. So, that's what makes Apstra unique. And our vendor agnostic solution, we ensure that the network is always working efficiently and delivering on your intent. Again, irrelevant of what vendor is underneath that layer. Just like when you go to the cloud, I mean, you don't know what vendor they're using for, that lower layer, and you don't care. You want to abstract that away. And we do that. And we do that through continuous automation and validation as well.
And what is next for Apstra then? And how are you helping businesses survive the next crisis? It almost feels a little bit crazy saying that because we've not got over this one yet, but it almost feels like we're now prepared now and wanting to be on the lookout so we don't get caught out again. So what's next for Apstra?
Yeah, I think it's what we're doing today in the data center. Where else does that fit within the organization, within the technology landscape? And what I can share is we've put the flag in the ground when it comes to the data center. We were able to abstract those bottom layers, remove the complexity, not only remove the complexity, but introduce reliability from day 0 through day 2 with our continuous validation. So where else does that make sense, outside the data center? And these are things that, we are constantly exploring to help solve these problems, not just in the data center, but maybe beyond. And again, I go back to what we talked about earlier is, a lot of the issues come back to the network as the foundation. And is that foundation stable? Is it reliable? Is it delivering the way you want it to deliver? Or were they put in just quick and dirty and nobody went back to fix some issues? And so, how can we solve that? And I think that's a use case that goes to a lot of aspects of the network, not just the data center. But for now, we are going to continue to deliver that in the data center and continue to lead the charge there. And we'll see where that takes us.
And to end on a positive note, is there anything in particular that excites you about the road ahead? Because we're just about to wave goodbye to the longest year in history, or what it feels like. But is there anything that you're excited about next year?
Yes, great question. Yeah, solving these challenges in every aspect of the network, from the foundation on up. And what I mean by that is just leveraging these core principles that have set Apstra apart, in other avenues, and also just what technology is turning into. I mean, we're living in an era where non-technology companies are acquiring technology companies, and Gartner is talking about digital dexterity, which I think is interesting. Which really, it's, in my opinion, it's where people in all manner of work roles, need to get more technical proficient and variety of skills, and to help their organizations digitally transform. I mean, there's no secret that, business transformation, in my opinion, is pulling through a requirement for digital transformation. So what excites me is, where is this going to take us? What comes next? Right now, like I said, we're in phase 1 of narrow AI. What does it look like when we dive into general AI? What does it look like when we start diving into other initiatives at the edge? Again, distributed machine learning, what comes next with that? But to do all of this, we have to have that foundation in place. So I think organizations realize that. And so let's focus on that foundation so you can open up all these avenues that lie in front of you to help your business. And let's all remember, I don't know that there's much of a choice, because the businesses are, in a lot of aspects, coming to IT with the solutions they've already procured or solutions they've already decided on. So let's get the foundation right and make sure that that's going to provide the reliability that organizations need and require. But I think it's going to be very exciting the next 2 or 3 years, even the next year or two, as we go further and further down this technology road. It's really exciting.
I completely agree with you there. Exciting times ahead. And for anyone listening there that would like to continue the conversation we started today, where's the best way that they can find Apstra online? Contact your team if they've got any questions, or, of course, book you for their wedding if that's an option too.
Absolutely. At www.apstra.com. That's APSTRA.com. And then another avenue would be sales@apstra.com, SALES at apstra.com. And then if they want to book me, then just reach out and find me on LinkedIn, and I will gladly help if I can in any way, especially now in this new era, right? So we can do these over Zoom. So actually, maybe it's back on the table. I'm open and ready to help officiate weddings.
Oh man, I would love that. After 1,400 podcast interviews, if we can get a wedding out of this, then I can hang up my podcasting mic once and for all. I've absolutely loved chatting with you today. So much value. And it's great helping people make sense of this world as well, and the kind of value it can bring to them and their business. So thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me on the show, Neil. Anytime.
So many big talking points there, such as the ins and outs of managing distributed data centers with automation, and also how organizations and channel partners can quickly identify precisely what vendors are delivering the best plug-and-play software to solve data center challenges. And of course, how data center agility will essentially allow organizations to remain more competitive in their industry by allowing network industries to focus on strategy rather than that traditional reactive and constant firefighting. But I suspect that lots of that will resonate with you, and you'll have your own experiences, war stories. You've probably got a few battle scars to show for it as well. So please keep your emails, insights, expertise, comments, questions, pictures to come on the podcast, whatever they may be, by simply emailing me, techblogwriter@outlook.com. My Twitter is Neil C. Hughes. And you can also find over 1,400 interviews over on my website, techblogwriter.co.uk, along with 2 other podcasts that I host, the Netgear Switched On Thinking, Citrix, Tech Fusion, and also how you can work with me. But I've rambled on more than enough for one day. Hopefully you'll join me again tomorrow, but a big thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.